Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
On this day, Wednesday, March 13th, 2013, at 10:30, a meeting of the Committee on the Administration of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held on the 8th floor room of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Vice President Armstrong,
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Lavelle, President Trobert,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke. Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Shalaby and Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will come to order. Item number 1. From the Director of Revenue, ordinance authorizing amendment to Chapter 7 of the Code of the Chicago Park District. Dana?
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners, President, Chief Anthony. My name is Dana Zielinski, and I'm Deputy Director of Revenue. As you may know, our department is in charge of most of the non-tax revenue for the Park District, which last year amounted to over $77 million. This revenue comes from several sources. One of them is contracted vendors, such as Soldier Field, harbors, golf. Also, we do permits, and then we have special event venues. I directly oversee these last two, and just a little bit of a background. A special event permit can be anything from a family reunion to all the fundraising walks and runs that you see every weekend out on the lakefront. It can also be concerts that are well known, such as Pitchfork and Lollapalooza. We also handle all the filming and photography permits for the Park District, so this can be commercial filming. There's a couple of great new pilots that are filmed that we hope get picked up, so they're filmed here in Chicago. We also permit athletic field permits for our sport and social groups. And lastly, we have a special event venue program that has about a dozen of our historic, wonderful sites that people book for corporate galas and weddings. This particular unit, we process about 1,500 permits annually, and in 2012, that brought in about $6.7 million, not including Lollapalooza. We've been working closely with Tim King as part of our continuing efforts to update, revise, and modernize the Chicago Park District Code. I believe you have a draft in front of you of our recommendations. I'd like to highlight a couple of the recommendations. In this day and age, our customers are not only requesting email communications, they are actually demanding it. Our code right now calls for us using United States Postal Service. This not only delays information getting to them, but it also costs us money to put things on letterhead, to put them in the mail. So we are proposing that the code now state that the method of communicating with our customers is email. Lastly, another way that the code can be modernized to reflect how customers use the parks is a lot of customers are now using social media. And what part of that involves is their meetup groups. And so somebody will say, hey, let's play soccer on a certain day, which sounds great. But then these people are starting to collect money. So they might collect $2, $3, $5 per person per evening. But then sometimes these organizers are not turning around and getting Park District permits. So we'd like to capture that and saying that as long as money is exchanged, not just conducting an official business on Park District property, that we're requiring that you have a permit. I'd be happy to entertain any other questions or review any of the other recommendations.
The email thing, tell me how the communication then will happen with email?
Yeah, and we've actually been doing that. And then what we do right now is we do email with the customers. We email them their conditional approval. We now have a link to their account so they can log in and see everything all the documents and fees that are due. We also email them their permit so they now can click and print it right at home.
I'm 80 years old. I don't have a computer. I'm never going to have a computer. I don't have email. What happens?
Oh, we definitely have a few of those customers. Actually, it's surprising how many people that you walk in the door and you wouldn't necessarily think they have email, but they've got a family member who helps them out. But we do have people who we still communicate with paper on, and we want to work with whatever works best for those customers. And a lot of them are returning customers who we work with year to year on their family picnics. So we aren't going to exclude anyone who does not have email.
Will that be the same for social media as well? How will you communicate with the social media aspect?
That's more of just being aware of what's going on in the parks, either park staff or security, and asking for permits. And then when we find somebody who's not having a permit, we educate them and let them know what the process is.
And my next question, you probably should answer it, that's not your job, it's security's job. But we hear at these meetings, and I was at a community meeting on Saturday, and one of the complaints is in our park, there are big groups that assemble, 50, 100, 300 people. no permit, they just show up, they take over the park, there's no supervision, there's some issues and problems. What can you do about that when they don't have a permit?
Yeah, well, every weekend there are at least 2 to 4 and sometimes more people from my department who are out checking every park that we know of there's permits. Well, we're out and about and we see other things going on, as well as park staff who are at those locations, as well as security. Sometimes we even get calls from landscape. Hey, there's something big going on over here. We didn't really have it on our list. So there's a lot of eyes and ears out there besides anyone who's officially it's their job. We're all looking out for our property as well as our other customers. At that point, when it's something large like that, we would definitely, if security hadn't already been involved, we would call them. And a lot of times at that point, we call the Chicago Police Department because it's a public safety issue. And it's really in the hands of the Chicago Park District. They're the ones who actually enforce our code.
And what do you do if you issue a permit for a certain size area, 100 people, and 1,000 people show up and...
Actually, the exact same thing. We pull up on a situation and, you know, I'm one person in a car. Am I really going to get rid of 1,000 people? We get the either security and or the Chicago Police Department involved to decide what to do at that moment. But if somebody has misrepresented their application, we definitely keep their security deposit as part of that, a penalty of misrepresenting. And actually, over the years, people learn. They're like, oh, I remember last year, you know, that hurt when I didn't get my, you know, $140 back. So I'm going to make sure I get a permit and be appropriate for next year.
Yeah, and yet there's a greater good being served with the park being used by a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Your motion?
So moved?
Second.
Thank you, Dana.
Great. Thanks for your time.
Chair Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Chabert?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Administration. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Administration is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, March 13th, 2013, at 10:40 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building, located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Commissioner Kolbeck? Commissioner Lavelle? Commissioner Salgado? Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Trobert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1, from the Director of Planning and Construction, authorization to issue final payment for work completed in connection with Foster and West Pullman Parks ADA transition plan upgrades. Rob Raymond.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rob Raymond, Director of Planning and Construction. This is to certify that VC Construction Company, on July 13, 2012, completed in a satisfactory manner and in full compliance with the terms and conditions of the contract all work in connection with Foster and West Pullman Parks ADA transition plan upgrades. I'm therefore recommending final payment in favor of VC Construction Company in the amount of $59,163.75. The original contract amount was $1,565,000. Total approved change orders was $348,481 for a total contract amount of $1,913,381. The M and WB participation are 33.6% and 66.4%. And I'll quickly go over again Foster Park. You can see on the plan it's at 1440 West 84th Street in the South Region, 21st Ward, and West Pullman is at 400 West 123rd Street, South Region, in the West Pullman community area, 34th Ward. Just some shots of the kinds of things that these projects tackle. We have entries, reception desks, changing areas, lockers, sinks, toilet rooms, and showers, elevators and the associated electrical work that goes along with elevators, interior and exterior drinking fountains, pathways, and benches. And again, if you have any questions, I can answer those at this time.
Forgive this trivial question. I see different benches in our parks. What do we have a park bench at this point that we use typically?
We have there are actually 3 main benches. We have a lot of wood slat benches that have been around forever, and we have like concrete pieces that fit with those, and they're very easy to maintain. This type of bench is very common in the parks. It's one of the most common. It's a black metal epoxy coated paint, low maintenance, with the center bar in the middle to, promotes people sitting there but not sleeping on them.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few other ones that fit within various historic parks. Any questions?
Any further questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call vote for the adoption of the matter?
Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Roberts?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authorization to issue final payment for work completed in connection with Kennecott and Piotrowski Park's ADA transition plan upgrade.
Thank you again. Rob Raymond, Director of Planning and Construction. This is to verify that VC Construction Company on July 13th, 2012 completed in a satisfactory manner and in full compliance with the terms and conditions of the contract all work in connection with Kennecott and Piotrowski Park's ADA transition plan upgrades. The minority participation is 30% and women-owned participation is 70%. The amount of final payment to VC is $28,761. The original contract amount was $1,315,000. The approved change orders was $123,058, and the total contract amount was $1,438,056. Again, the scope, Piotrowski Park is at 4247 West 31st Street in the 22nd Ward, and Kennecott is 4434 South Lake Park in the 4th Ward. Again, types of improvements: interior, exterior drinking fountains, showers, bathrooms, entries. And here at Kennecott Park you can see again entryways, benches, kitchenettes, front counters, drinking fountains. These again are for removal of barriers and that present problems for people with disabilities throughout the parks. A lot of small things put together, but the overall program, this is again closeout of 2 contracts of several, and so it's spread throughout the entire park system. The overall program over the last couple of years has been around $13 million, and this is just 2 of those sites. And these were 2 of the sites today.
Rob, on this one, the change orders you said were $123,000,
Yes,
and that represents what percentage of the total?
9%.
And what do you consider, just rule of thumb, and then I know you have to get into what the actual
Yeah.
change order was.
Yeah, we certainly don't like to go above 10% change orders on any contract. That would be the top end. Renovation projects tend to have more than new construction because you end up getting behind existing walls and whatnot, and you find additional problems related to old plumbing, electric, or HVAC. And the overall program, I actually have some numbers related to that. I know we touched upon it a little bit last board meeting where we were doing other ADA closeouts. Again, on the approximate $13 million, the total change orders, due to what we had discussed, errors and omissions, on this particular contract of the $123,000, the change orders break down into $54,000 in errors and omissions change orders, $50,000 in unforeseen, and about $18,000 in owner directed. Related to the E&Os, the damages assessed to the architect were $5,360, and that's about 10% of the actual change order amounts. And again, we had talked a little bit about what types of damages are assessed for what types of change orders. So that's for that particular contract. For the overall program, the total change orders due to E&O was about $703,000.
Again, E&O being?
Errors and omissions to the architect. And then that's about, of the change orders in the overall $13 million program, that's about 5.4% of construction. The entire damages assessed for those $13 million to the architect was $104,525, which is not insignificant for any architecture firm in a given year. And that's about 15% of the change orders that were associated with the NO, which is in line with what you would assess for those kinds of additions. So.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. The Committee of the Whole is now adjourned.